To begin our discussion of subroutines in Perl, we're going to talk about defining and calling subroutines. So let's start by making a copy of the subs.pl, and we'll call this one defining.pl, and we'll open that up, and we'll notice in here that the first thing we do is we call a subroutine, and this subroutine is main. And inside of main, we call message, which is another subroutine. And this is an example, really, of reusable code and hiding complexity. I like to have a way to display messages that have a new line at the end of them. And so I'll create this pretty much in all of my command line programs. I'll have something called message, and it will do what I want it to do to display a message. In this case, it displays the message with a new line character at the end of it. This \n is a shortcut for a new line character, so that as I display messages, message 1, message 2, and message 3, they're all on a separate line from each other. I'll go ahead and save that and run it, and you can see what I mean. If I were to do this with print, I would have to put a new line at the end of each of these. And, while that's not a terrible inconvenience, to me, it's just more simple to do it this way. This is the subroutine that's being called, sub message like that. A subroutine is declared or defined by using the word sub, and then the body of the subroutine is in a block, which is delimited by these braces. And inside the subroutine, you can get arguments and other details, and we'll talk about these in later movies. But right now we're talking about defining and calling the subroutine. So it's defined with the keyword sub and the name in the block, and then it's called by using the name of the subroutine followed by parentheses and any arguments to the subroutine that you might have. In this case, we have a string. Now, if this subroutine were defined before the place where it's called, if it were defined up here, then in actuality you wouldn't even need these parentheses. You could call it like this. And sometimes you'll see it done this way. If I save this and run it. And in fact, with Perl's built-in functions, it's often common to have them called without parentheses. If you want to be able to call it that way, but you don't want to have to define it before the place where it's used, you can actually, you see we've got errors here because now it's defined after and there's no parentheses here. You can declare it above by using the use subs. This is called a pragma, and use the QW operator, which allows you to use a list of words and creates a list from separate words, and you can put message up here and a semicolon, and now you can call that function without the parentheses. So we'll save and run. You see there's no errors, and it works like we expect it. You can even list several of them up here, error up here too, and you'll notice I have an error function down at the bottom. And then if I wanted to, I could make one of these an error instead and save that and run it. And you'll see that that also can be called without parentheses. This is something that you'll see done now and then in other people's code, and if you choose to do it, it's perfectly okay. I will often use message and error this way so they can be called without the parentheses. Again, it's just another convenience, but it's one of those things that Perl allows that a lot of people use that you'll see often. So that's how you define and call subroutines in Perl.